loves, and welcome to today's video. This month I am participating in Escape the Readathon, which is a competitive readathon based on the amount of books that you have read. I am very competitive. We are 11 days into this month and I have already finished 27 books. So today I'm going to be giving you my thoughts on the 27 books that I have read so far this month. Normally I do one wrap up at the end of the month, but I'm gonna forget what I read 5 days ago by the time the end of the month comes around and I've read another 30 books. As normal, I will order this in my lowest to my highest rating so far. The lowest rating I've given out so far this month is a 2.5, and that was to War of the Realms, Journey into Mystery. This is a comic book written by the McElroy brothers and their father Clint. This is set in the MCU and is about some, in my opinion, lesser known heroes who are trying to protect the sister of Thor, who is a baby. Got a 2.5 for me because I don't think I am well versed enough on the comic book version of the MCU to be able to appreciate and understand this, and I don't think it was very accessible unless you have quite the backlog of knowledge of the MCU comics. This was a 2.5 for me. It also revolved around a baby, which is not going to be my favorite kind of plot. 2.75 stars. Our first is The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. This is a classic gothic horror novel about a woman who's been hired to be nanny for these two children, and ghosts and spooky things start showing up. I give this one a 2.75. The language in this one is a bit dated, which is understandable because it's written in 1898, but it wasn't an enjoyable experience for me to read that language, as well as not a particularly compelling narrative. Couldn't get into this one, so it got a 2.75 for me, unfortunately. I just kind of expect more from gothic horror at this point. If you had asked me like 6 months ago, I would have said I didn't like this because it was gothic horror, but I have found some gothic horror books that I like recently, so it's more that this one's just not for me. I also gave a 2.75 to a complete end of the spectrum, Neon Gods by Katie Roberts. This is a erotica novel about Hades and Persephone, basically. A modern retelling. Persephone has been promised by her mother to Zeus. She runs away to the underworld, basically, has to pretend to be in a relationship with Hades to get out of her marriage with Zeus, and then they fall in love. I just feel like Hades and Persephone retellings are a little bit overdone in the Greek mythology space, and also, I don't know what it was, the dialogue was so cringy. I was listening to this on audio, and I got the ick from the Hades lines specifically, so this one was a no for me. Next are the books that I gave a 3.25 to. The first is The Night Shift by Alex Finlay. This is like a parallel storyline where there was a murder that happened at like a Blockbuster video store in the 90s. Then in more modern times, a very similar killing happens at a Dairy Queen. And the person who was accused of the Blockbuster killing has since fled, so they're trying to figure out like, hey, that guy responsible for this killing? Is it a copycat? What's going on? What was the motive? This one got a 3.25. I found the twist a little cheap, and I managed to guess who was going to be responsible fairly quickly, just because the very first time that character showed up, I was like, no, this is the guy that did it. I know you're gonna try and throw me a bunch of red herrings, but I called this guy. Just it gives me the vibe, and I was right, so 3.25. Another 3.25 is Universal Harvester by John Darnielle. I really liked The Devil House when I read it, so I was excited to read another John Darnielle. This one just was not it, though. This one was about someone who is working at a video store, was a common theme, I guess, and he finds these videotapes that have strange recordings on them, and I think this is, again, my fault. I thought this was gonna be a horror, but it was just kind of mundane, and a story about wanting to leave your hometown but feeling trapped there. I think I zoned out a lot of listening to this one because it just was not very interesting to me. John Darnielle is a good writer. I just don't think that this was a compelling story. Also gave it 3.25 to The Way of the House Husband, Volume 5 by Kosuke Uno. This is about a former Yakuza member who's retired and is now a house husband, and the various troubles he gets into while doing his chores and having the appearance of a scary Yakuza member. I liked some of this one, but we just, again, were very much focused on him and his, like, former associate, whereas I like the stories that are a bit more about him and the dynamic he has with his wife. So this one was just a 3.25 for me. And also 3.25 to Spy Family Volume 12. This is a graphic novel series about a spy who has to find a fake family to go undercover. So he chooses a woman without knowing that she's an assassin, and he chooses a child without knowing that she is a telepath. So none of them know their own backstories except for the telepath who knows everyone else's business. In this one, we already wrapped up the, like, hostage situation plotline that was going on here. This one kind of puttered around for a while about Yor being worried that because she doesn't fight with Lloyd, that people wouldn't think that they were in a relationship together, and then she, like, picks a fight for no reason. I like when y'all are all happy together. I don't like you picking fights for no reason, so 3.25, not my favorite issue. 3.5 to the Arc of Vampires at Sea that I read. This is by Lindsay Merbaum, and it is about two vampires who are going on a cruise to have a little change of scenery and to feed. These are not blood-sucking vampires, they are energy vampires. It is explicitly mentioned in the acknowledgements that this was inspired by What I Do in the Shadows. It is very Nadja and Laszlo. I did not like these characters, and that made it a very hard book to enjoy. It was very overtly sexual. Essentially, the plot follows the female character, I think her name was Rebecca, becoming jealous when the male partner takes interest in this non-binary person on a cruise, even though Rebecca is sleeping with a bunch of other people on this cruise too. I don't really like cheating storylines. While this is horror in the way that there are monsters, it was not horror in the way that I thought it was going to be in terms of having actual plot of horror happening. For me, this one got a 3.5. I would probably want to read more from this author if they chose to go a different way with different plots, but this book just didn't end up being for me, even though I liked the concept that I thought it was going to be. 3.5 also for The Witcher Volume 8 Wild Animals. This is a graphic novel based on the video game series The Witcher, also the books. I do have the books here as well. In this one, Geralt has gone to this community and he's being told that there's this, like, rogue band of people who are killing the members of this town. And then he goes to the people who are doing the killings and they're like, well, the people in the town are slaughtering animals for no reason and we must take vengeance for that. This one was a 3.5 because I thought the art was really cool. I liked the way that this one drew Geralt, but I felt like the back and forth between these two, like, rival communities went back and forth a few too many times, with Geralt just, like, being a ping pong and, like, taking everybody at his word, when my understanding of Geralt as a character is he's a lot more skeptical than this comic book would have led me to interpret him as a character. For me, a 3.5. The art nailed Geralt. The characterization, not so much in my opinion. Next is The Salt Grows Heavy by Cassandra Khaw. This is about a siren who was married to a king and had a bunch of daughters, and then her daughters destroy the town. Then she meets up with a plague doctor. That was all I grasped of the plot. I listened to the second half of this audiobook twice and I still don't know what happened. There were children, something happened, that someone was bleeding and dying, and Bezors were involved. I found this very hard to follow, which could have been my fault because I was listening to it at 3x speed, but even when I tried to listen to it again at like 2.25, which is my default, I still couldn't grasp what was going on with the plot. So I 3.5, I really liked the concept, I really liked the writing, I just couldn't get a grasp on the plot. It was a little slippery for me. And the last 3.5 is Hide by Kirsten White. This is about I think she's a young adult. She definitely had to be above 18, but not by much. And she has the opportunity to win $50,000 by playing this game of hide and seek. This is a horror, so you can imagine that when you're found, great things don't happen to you. I was enjoying this one in the first half. There are hints of this really tragic backstory that this character has, which makes her good at hide and seek. I liked when we started to get into the reasoning behind why the hosts are doing this hide and seek game. And then the book ended. And I was like, where's the other half of the book? It felt like it ended in the middle of a conversation. That's how that ending felt to me. So this ended up getting a 3.5 because I'm just confused where the book ended. Did I miss a few chapters? Were those cut out of my audiobook? Was enjoying it, but needed more to actually finish it. A 3.75 to the first book that I finished in the month, It Only Hurts for a Moment by Delilah S. Dawson. That was 27 books ago. Let's see if I can remember. This is about a woman who, I think she's going through a really bad breakup, so she agrees to go to this like artist colony, artist retreat, and when she gets there, having like dreams of a past life where things are not great at the location that this artist retreat is going on, and people at this artist retreat start dying. So this, I ended up giving a 3.75. I did really enjoy the plot elements. I found the characters a little hard to keep track of, as is my tendency. I didn't think the writing was standout, especially based on my other experiences of Delilah S. Dawson's writing. I think Bloom and Guillotine have just raised my expectations for what her writing can be. So this ended up at a 3.75. I would still recommend it. I still would enjoy reading this. It just wasn't my favorite book that I've read this month. Also 3.75 to Your Shadow Half Remains by Sunny Moran. So this is like a post-apocalypse novel where our main character is in this cabin isolated because a plague has been spreading that if you make eye contact with someone, you go crazy and kill yourself. She has been living in isolation, being very careful not to talk to other people, when a new neighbor moves in and she starts taking some risks. So this one got a 3.75. I really like the writing style of this one. I enjoyed the horror elements and I enjoyed the premise. I just didn't particularly care for the relationship between the two main characters. That was a bit of a heavy focus for this. That brought me down a little bit, but I think that this did deliver on the premise. It also was just a little close to the concept of Bird Box. So I was maybe comparing this to Bird Box the whole time, because spoiler alert, I also read Bird Box this month. But we will get to that in a little bit, because first, also at 3.75 is The Reddening by Adam L.G. Neville. I think sometimes he goes by Adam Neville. The storygraph says LG is there. This one follows a few different characters. I think I got a little confused by POVs in this one. This is about someone who has gone missing in the cave system of some exotic location, did not catch where that location is. The sister or the co-worker, I think both of them maybe, or were they the same person? I really don't know. Goes to try and search for them. There's also like some weird people who show up in all red and do a cannibalism. I enjoyed the cannibalism parts. I enjoyed the like creepy culty vibes. I just got a little confused by our POVs. Again, possibly my fault because I might be listening to a lot of these at 3.x speed. I don't know who any of the characters were. Couldn't tell you a single one. But the plot was good, so a 3.75. At a 3.75, I finally read one of the oldest books on my TBR, 1984 by George Orwell. This book has been on my TBR for 13 years. We follow our main character who works for the government, basically changing history. So he rewrites news stories to fit the current narrative of the way of the world. Then he starts a relationship with this woman and maybe shifts into a bit more negative feelings about the government, but the government has eyes everywhere. I think that's the gist. I give this a 3.75. Rating classics is hard for me because do I recognize that this book is important to the history of literature? Yes. Do I recognize that this book made some very good points about totalitarianism, surveillance states, fascism, all of those things? Also, yes. Did I enjoy reading it? No. I DNF'd this when I tried reading it when I was 17, and I wanted to try it again with a fully developed frontal lobe and have more context for fascism and surveillance states. The main character fantasizes about raping and killing the woman that he does eventually get into a relationship with, and like the first conversation he has with her, he's like, oh yeah, I fantasized about bashing your face in. And she still dates him? Weird misogyny. And I don't know if that was supposed to be a commentary on how the government has impacted his way of thinking, but also it just made me uncomfortable. I acknowledge Mr. Orwell has made some good points. I just did not enjoy reading this. Not even in a way that's like, I didn't enjoy reading this because it made me uncomfortable and made me think about things. Just didn't enjoy reading this because the misogyny made me uncomfortable. And the last 3.75 is When Among Crows by Veronica Roth. This is about a man who is trying to find the Baba Yaga. He has a magic flower that can cure a curse, and he links up with someone who is cursed to try and convince them to get him to meet the Baba Yaga. Do I remember why he's trying to meet the Baba Yaga? I do not. But I love books about the Baba Yaga. So this ended up with 3.75. I loved the use of mythology or folklore in this one. I was really digging that part of it. This is the first book in a series, so I'm interested to see when the second book comes out where we're going with the plot, but a solid start to a series, so a 3.75. Okay, on to books that I gave 4 stars to. The first is Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. It was very interesting that I coincidentally happened to read 1984 and Fahrenheit 451 in the same month. That wasn't planned. So Fahrenheit 451 is about a man who works for the fire department, and in this world, parallel, future, or elsewhere, the fire department doesn't put out fires, it burns books. And this firefighter steals some books and starts to question why they're burning books. I enjoyed this more than I enjoyed 1984. It's a very topical subject to discuss right now. Banning books, burning books, all of those things. And I did enjoy what it had to say about knowledge and the passing down of knowledge. This ended up at a 4. I enjoyed this more than I liked 1984. So it got a 4. I also gave a 4 to The Wonderful Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum. This is the middle grade / children's novel that inspired the Wizard of Oz movie. This is about Dorothy, who is whisked away from Kansas and is dropped into Munchkin Land and has to try to kill the evil witch to return back to her home. I liked the movie, so I liked this book. It was very close to the plot of the original 1930s movie. I am interested to see whether I get to the second and third novel and we branch from that, whether I still enjoy it, but it was good in terms of the characters, it was good in terms of the plot. It was nice to read a classic that I enjoyed, so a 4 for The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. Another book I gave a 4 to, which I will disclose did not use my CAWPILE rating to get this, was The Deeper Meaning of Lif by Douglas Adams and John Lloyd. This one I could not use either of my 2 CAWPILE rating systems for because it is a dictionary basically of made-up definitions for words using place names. So for example, A henny, adjective, the way people stand when examining other people's bookshelves. Or ballycumber, noun, one of the 6 half-read books lying somewhere in your bed. Obviously, this doesn't have a character and plot I could evaluate it on, but it's also not a nonfiction book that I could evaluate on, like, its credibility and its personal impact. This was just a little fun time. I coincidentally just happened to go into my used bookstore looking for something else and found this, which is a Douglas Adams book I hadn't read yet. Douglas Adams, one of my favorite authors of all time, so I was really excited to find this, and I had a good time with it. I had some sensible chuckles, and it was a 4 compared to, like, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. This can't get a 5, but I had a good time with it. Also within the 4-star category, I reread Interior Chinatown by Charles Yu. I think my original rating when I just did the audiobook was a 3.75, but based on how the format of it was, I did want to try reading the physical, which bumped it up to a 4. I think it was a lot easier to follow in a physical format. I feel like there was an entire chunk of the middle that I entirely missed on audiobook that helped make the book make more sense to me. This is about a man living in Chinatown who basically views the world as a movie script. All he wants to be in life is to be cast as Kung Fu guy. This was very much a commentary on the stereotyping and the limitations upon Asian people in the film industry, in the Hollywood machine, how they are stereotyped to certain roles, they aren't given as many opportunities, which I thought was really well done. It was in the form of a script and used a like buddy cop show as a framing device. I ended up really enjoying this as a physical book, and it bumped it up to a 4. Okay, and finally at our 4.25s, I can talk about Bird Box by Josh Malerman. Bird Box, if you didn't see the movie that was really popular, like, God, was that 5 years ago now? Bird Box is about an apocalypse where people start seeing something that makes them either want to kill others or kill themselves. And we follow a main character who was pregnant at the time that this apocalypse started happening and is switching between the past when this basically first happened and the group that she found herself with, and then in the more like current day of her with these 2 children and the way she has had to raise them to keep them safe in this world where looking at something can kill you. I ended up giving this a 4.25. I really liked the story that was in the present day with how these kids have had to be raised, how paranoid she is, and the rules she's made to keep her safe. Some of the characters in the past timeline I didn't care for. I couldn't keep track of. So this ended up at a 4.25. It was a really promising premise that was executed well, and I am interested to read the second one and see if it can keep up that energy. I also gave a 4.25 to The Dead Cattail Assassins by P. Jelly Clark. This is about a woman who is an assassin, but she is also dead. So she is like a zombie, basically. She's sent on a job to kill someone, and when she gets there, it is a child. This kicks off a series of events when she refuses to kill this child. I thought this was really interesting. It involved some like fantasy elements of the undead and necromancy, while also having some like sci-fi time travel elements to it, which I thought blended together really well and ended up for a really interesting plot. So The Dead Cattail Assassins, I did end up giving a 4.25. I also gave a 4.25 to Sour Candy by Patrick Keelan Burke. This is about a man who's at the grocery store one day when he sees this like mom and her unruly toddler, and the kid is crying over the candy, and then finally gets given like sour candies, and the kid offers him one and he takes it, and then everyone starts thinking the kid is his, and it slowly drives him insane. I really liked like the first 3/4 of this. I felt like the ending was a little rushed, but it's also a novella, so it's not going to have hundreds and hundreds of pages to luxuriate in an ending, and I don't think that the ending was unsatisfied. I just would have liked it to take a little bit more time. So overall, a 4.25. I think it was an interesting premise. The last 4.25, I was surprised this ended up so high, and that's No Good Deed by Kara Connolly. This I found on my library because I just typed in archery, and it was one of the suggestions. This is about a woman who is a competitive archer, Olympic style, who accidentally gets transported back in time to Sherwood Forest and basically becomes Robin Hood. This is not going to be a book for everyone. I'm probably not going to recommend it to everybody or anything, but for me, I really enjoyed this. I do archery. This probably had the most accurate explanations of archery that I have read in a book since I started doing archery. The fact that her coach at the competition at the beginning was like, one arrow at a time. Don't focus on your next shot, not the last one. I'm like, my coach has literally said that exact same thing to me multiple times. Well done archery descriptions. Ended up pushing this basically in a 4.25. I had fun reading this. Not the best book I've ever read, but pretty good. A 4.75, we have The Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay. This is about a family of 2 dads and a daughter who are at a cabin relaxing when this group of people break in and say, one of you has to die or the world's gonna end. I really enjoyed this one. I think the only thing I didn't give a 5 to was like character, but I really enjoyed the plot of this one. Read it all in one sitting, listened to it all in one sitting. I thought the premise was interesting. I liked the way that the ending was kind of left up to your interpretation. And overall, a really fun thriller. So 4.75. And so far this month, I have 2 5 stars. One is a reread of The River Has Roots, because I now own the physical copy of it. This is inspired by a murder ballad. It is about 2 sisters who have to sing to the forest. One of them falls in love with a fey creature on the other side of the forest, while both of them are being pursued by this man. The audiobook for this is absolutely beautiful. It is the only audiobook I have ever bought because it includes songs sung by the author and her sister. I had the fortunate experience of getting to hear Amal El-Mohtar speak about this book, talking about her influence. There's also notes in here about magic coming from language, which if you liked Babel but wanted more of a fantastical fairy tale take on that, I really loved this. 5 stars for the second time. And the second 5 star and the last book that I am going to talk about today is Vera Wong's Guide for Snooping on a Dead Man by Jessie Q. Satanso. This is about an elderly Asian woman named Vera Wong. In the first book, she has someone show up dead in her tea shop and investigates by basically bringing all of the suspects food and just chatting with them. So this is the second book in the series. This time she goes to the police station to report a crime, and on her way out she sees a woman crying. The woman said that her friend has gone missing, and it turns out he's been lying about his identity. So she does what she does and wrangles up all of the suspects, brings them food, and basically shoves her way into their business to try and figure out what happened to this man. And these are just delightful. I ended up enjoying this one more than I enjoyed the first one because I feel like now we have a cast of characters that are well established, and now we're adding more in that just cohesively fit. And I just love Vera Wong. She is all up in everyone's business all the time, and I love that for her. I had so much fun listening to this. It was a 5 star. Those are all of the books that I read in the first 10 days of May so far. This is gonna be a crazy reading month. I hope you enjoyed. If you made it to the end of the video, leave the tea emoji for Vera Wong's tea shop, or let me know if you have any new 5 stars. I need to know about it. If you enjoyed, like and consider subscribing so you don't miss the next update at the end of the month. A link in the descriptions to my Goodreads and my Instagram if you want to keep up on what I'm reading throughout the month. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day. This is about Dorothy, who's whisked away from canvas and campus.